folks. So welcome to our Designing for Dark Mode webinar, everyone. At Email on Acid, we have turned down the lights on email this month in what we're calling Darktober. And it's a chance for us to take a closer look at the digital trend dark mode and how it's impacting email marketing. In today's discussion, we're going to be talking with a panel of industry experts who are going to provide insights into design and development of dark mode emails. So without further ado, let me introduce the panel. I'm Monica Hoyer, based in Durham, North Carolina. I'm the Director of Marketing at Email on Acid. I have over 20 years experience in the email industry, and I've worked for publishers as well as ESPs and done everything from content writing and coding to data analysis. Ed Ball is our email developer here at Email on Acid, and he's based in Denver, Colorado. He's developed emails for the military, US military and Fortune 500 companies, and he's now helping EOA push the envelope as much as possible in email. Ann Tomlin is joining us from Austin, Texas, and she's the founder of Emails Y'all. She's been developing emails for 10 years and gets emails coded right the first time. And last but not least, the founder of email boutique Anne Forcier. Anne is based in Vancouver, British Columbia, and her agency helps craft outstanding email experiences through results-oriented assets. I wanted to note that we are representing four of the time zones, all of the time zones in the continental US. So super excited to be able to connect with people across the country, literally, on today's email or webinar. So let's jump right in. For question one, you can see from these stats, dark mode's becoming more prevalent. So as people start using dark mode more, how is this impacting how you currently design emails? And why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for putting the slide up. So I want to just talk real quickly about stats with dark mode. So these, all this information that I'm about to say is from emailclientmarketshare.com. So Apple products have almost half of the market share with these stats coming from September of 2020. If 50% of those Apple product users have dark mode on, that's at least 23.5% of the market share. And if only 25% had dark mode on, then that would be 11.75% of the market share, which is more than Apple Mail's market share alone. So dark mode is definitely very prevalent, and we need to start taking it into account, especially when both designing and coding. And it's only going to get more popular, so you might as well early adopt and progressively enhance.
Jump on that bandwagon, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome. Annette, how about you? How is this currently impacting what you're doing for designing emails?
Well, I'm agreeing with Anne. The numbers are definitely high enough that we cannot afford to ignore them. I definitely design and code for dark mode, but what I experienced is that a lot of my clients are not actually considering quite yet. So I'm starting with asking the right questions and preparing the teams that I'm working with to consider it. Asking questions like, are the stakeholders actually signing off on dark mode? Are they aware that this is a thing? And because a lot of stakeholders are just looking on their own phones and not considering all the email clients we are testing on. And then is there in the design system or in the design itself, is there already an example of the dark mode in there? So that designers are looking at them as well, the way they prepare the imagery. What I care about too is because I often receive style guides or brand guidelines, and I see them being a bit outdated. They're not prepared for the dark mode. They're not considering what happens with logos or brand colors on dark mode. So I think that should be something that needs to be updated and move on with the technology that changes constantly. And then are the team members aware of email limitations or the inconsistencies between the email clients? So when we design an email markup, then we're just looking at one of the opportunities or the possibilities, which is not consistent with what happens in the end product. So these are the kind of questions that I'd like to include in my questionnaire or in the initial meeting with clients if it's already in their head or not. Yep. To evaluate from where I can start.
Super important to get started on the right foot, that's for sure. Ed, what about you?
For me, I like to use transparent PNGs with transparent backgrounds, just so it doesn't create that that white block. But also dark mode as it's 2 words, but the email clients, they have different meanings. So like Gmail web app is like a dark UI, where the Gmail app on the phone partially inverts the colors. So I try to keep that stuff in mind as well.
Okay, cool. Moving on to our second question. Accessibility is critically important when designing for dark mode. What do you think are the most common accessibility errors brands make in dark mode? Annette, we're going to go to you first.
Yeah, that's the same issue as before, that I feel like accessibility is not considered enough. I mean, we are talking about it in our industry, but is it actually our clients and customers, are they aware already of it? I see a lot of brand guidelines where none of this is written down and nothing is communicated. Things also changing with the technology. So I think keeping style guides and brand guidelines up to date to current technology is something that I cannot address enough. So the same for testing. Not any client so far has asked me for an email test for a colorblind email. So it's still not considered, and so it's I look at it, I test for it. But it's very important that customers are looking, to engage their customers and know them, and understand that there is not everyone has the same kind of eyesight, or, how is an email sounding like? Do we actually test with screen readers and voiceover? And so, same as with alt text, any kind of alternative text inside of an email when an image is not loaded or not visible, or a screen reader is reading it. I don't see any alt text in copy decks. This is a job of a copywriter. So I shouldn't be the one adding the alt text to the image, because I'm a developer, I'm not a copywriter. So, I mean, it's not like I can't write, but it's not, the copywriter should have the last word, the last say, and also see it.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Ed, what about you?
So when we talk about accessibility, there's stuff like under the hood, like table row presentations, like empty alt text. But unfortunately, when we talk about dark mode, we have to talk about the colors. So the only thing I know for sure, the color contrast ratio is not being accepted. It's also in light mode. Also, they're not accepting it. Also, so that's something that I think, and I agree with Annette. They're not considering it. Maybe they're too busy, or they're thinking about it. But yeah, I definitely think color contrast ratio is a big topic. And then I've seen some companies don't optimize their logos for dark mode, so they'll have like a black logo with a transparent background and just disappear in an email.
Yeah, which I know Annette has some information on that later in the presentation. So that's definitely a good thing to bring up. What about you, Anne? What are you seeing in terms of accessibility errors?
I see that some people are not using or making links look like links. And that's important with accessibility. And it helps everybody. It's not just for the people we're coding it for. But yeah, you want to always have it, have your links be a different color and underlined. You can even add some hover states to your links to, bring it out even more, call attention to it. And I guess the last thing I'd say would be people are still using pure white and pure black. And that can create a halo effect for some people. So you want to go a little bit off of pure white and pure black.
Great. Awesome. Question 3, so we're moving into dark mode issues and email service providers. Question 3, so depending on your email client, the design process can drastically change when it comes to dark mode. Ed, we're going to go to you with this question first. Have you found any common differences across the platforms?
I feel like there might be some clients treating them the same, but for the most part, they're all different. It's like they say it's in dark mode, but it's like their own version of dark mode. It's not really, you know what I mean? They're not, there's no standard. It's much like email though. There's like no standard. It's just, we're just going to call it this.
So from a development standpoint, you just have to kind of figure it out. You have to test, make sure you're testing and make adjustments and try different things in order to find what the secret sauce is, essentially.
Yes. Some stuff like Gmail can't be hacked or it can't be touched. So some of the dark mode clients are actually stuck with, you can't manipulate or change something. So you're kind of trapped. I think Outlook's another one.
Okay. And we're going to move over to you next.
Yeah, totally. Everything that Ed just said, totally. Also, like Apple Mail and iOS Mail will allow you to use a media query to target them and actually put in your own dark mode styles, which is great. But Outlooks and Gmail, you can't do anything for them. So you have to design for them. There are no hacks for it. So, and Outlook.com, also you can put in styles using the media query for dark mode, but it will still, Outlook.com will still take your colors that you've specified and darken them a little bit. So you kind of, I guess the main message here being like design for dark mode rather than try and hack it.
Right.
I think I heard a rumor that Gmail might be doing the color scheme dark, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
I thought I mentioned that.
Well, in that case.
Changes everything, right?
Rumor though, so, but I thought it was appropriate for this webinar.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So Annette, over to you. What commonalities have you found?
I would like to ask to turn this question around and saying, like, you're talking about the common things between dark and black mode.
Okay.
So an example here with something that works actually quite well. So before we're starting to reverse everything, why don't we just try to see what stays the same? So in this case, this is really an ideal solution because the logo is gray, the copy is not black. It's a darker gray, but will look all right on a dark background. I will talk about the button color a little bit later, but also the footer icons. Nothing has been changed here. All I did here is addressing the dark mode in the meta tags, but I have not changed any color for the font or imagery. The only thing I changed a little bit is the button color, and I will talk to this about this later. But sometimes we overthink things a little bit, and then you get into reversing all these different font styles and background styles. And if you're testing for 5 to 6 different kind of dark modes across, and we already know nothing looks the same, if we dial it back a little bit and see if we can actually design for it in an easier way, then we will all be a little bit happier, I think.
Wonderful, thank you. So now jumping into designing for dark mode, question 4 is, how do you all take dark mode into consideration when designing a campaign? Nanette, we're gonna start off with you on this question.
Well, it depends. Oftentimes I receive completed designs. Ideally, I was included in the process early. Most of the time I have not. And so in this case here, I received a Photoshop design. This is mostly all images, barely any live text. And so the first thing I do, I add a black layer in Photoshop and turn it on and see what happens. And it's pretty clear here that some of the visual elements are not considering black mode at all. So the water bubbles we see here, for example, they're all, they don't have any white backgrounds. So we talked about before that we want PNGs to be, have a transparent background in order to, to see the background. But in this case, it's actually not ideal. It would be more ideal if the water bubbles would have a background to make them visible. They disappear completely. So
Annette, I'm sorry to interrupt just really quickly. A question came in that said, aren't there issues with using ping files with transparent backgrounds in some email clients? PNG files.
Not that I know of. I would be careful with transparent GIFs because the edges can be quite pixelated, but PNGs usually don't have, not that I know of, no.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
That's not a problem at all. So yeah, so this is just a black background I throw in, and it doesn't do anything to, if there was live text or not, it doesn't do anything quite to it. Yeah, so, and the problem here is also that, and we do this a lot, I see this a lot in Photoshop files, when the footer is rendered into one layer only, because it's kind of, it's repeating. Why don't we use it? We don't have to, we just reuse this element. So in this case, I have to go back to the designer and ask for the elements to be a single icon so I can export them easier, and also change them and reverse the colors from black to white. So there's a lot of things I will have to talk to the designer about in this case. And he wasn't, the person was just not aware of it. So there's always a meeting I have to have with the designer to talk about what should be done. If you go to the next slide, you see a bit, some example that is a bit much ideal. This is a Figma design, similar to Sketch. I love these design system tools because we can see all the artboards next to each other, and simply add a black version of the same email and have a look and see what's going on here. The elements are easy to change. I can remove the background easier because it's actually a code. So if I ask the designer, hey, can you send me this icon with a transparent background, it's not a big conversation. It can be done quick and easily. So yeah, so there are some design tools that help us a bit more than others. And these are usually Figma and Sketch, in my opinion.
Okay. I think we had, did you have one more? Yeah, was this your,
no,
oh no, this is Anne's. Anne, why don't we go over to you then? Perfect timing.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so I put in dark styles to control what I can using the media query. I also stick to a limited color palette, and I think Annette touched on this with the logos. You can try and do a switch of a logo, like, if you have a dark logo and it goes on dark mode, you're probably not going to be able to see that logo very well. So you have kind of like two options. You can switch, do an image swap for dark mode using the, you'd make a lighter version of your logo and then do the swap with the media query. Or this might be a little bit easier, you put a white stroke around the logo. And actually in the slide that you're seeing now, that was done. There was a white stroke around the logo. So that's why you can see it a little bit better than you normally would have. So, and another thing I would definitely say is, and this is demonstrated in this slide very well, is avoid backgrounds, background colors that go smack up against an image that has that same background color, because dark mode will change the background color but the image will be the same. I mean, it won't change. So you've kind of got this weird looking, like you tried, but it didn't exactly work out. So you want to try and avoid that as much as possible. I would say when you're working with background images with text on top, that text sometimes gets inverted in color. So you really want to be careful about that and like test and make sure that your background image will work no matter what the color of the text is. So in that certain kind of circumstance, I try to think of colors like other than just black and white and gray, because those colors usually show up better with background images when converted in dark mode.
Got it. And Ed, what about you?
When I started email, just to go back to the PNG question, when I started email, there were like no PNGs, and then I don't know why, but PNGs were implemented like out of nowhere. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but definitely use a transparent background, and I try to keep it simple. And I know it's easier said than done, honestly. Simplicity is not always that easy. So,
but isn't that the truth in most the email coding that we do these days anyway? The simpler it is, the easier. No,
it's true. You're right.
Oh, okay.
So true. Yeah.
A question did come in, Ed, and I'm going to throw this question over to you. Is there a reason why from a development standpoint, we shouldn't just force a white or light background color?
You can. I don't know. I feel like you should design for dark mode, not hack dark mode. So.
Because you kind of want to respect all of your audiences, like make sure that the folks who want dark mode are getting their dark mode email rather than just trying to force them into one bucket.
Correct. I mean, even if it looks like it's not rendering well, they still want it to look like that.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is, depending on the inbox your email hits, previewing can be really tough. So how do you fix common mistakes like white backgrounds, white logos, link formatting? And we're going to start with you on this one.
Oh, sure. So I guess I would go back to links being looking like links. So because, I mean, the whole point of an email is to drive traffic. So you really need to make those links a priority. I would say the white stroke around the logo, and be willing to cut new assets. So like, for example, some people like to put social media icons in like all of a dark color, or make them all the same color. But what would actually work better for both light mode and dark mode in that situation would be the colors of that social media, like Pinterest be Pinterest red, Facebook be Facebook blue, that sort of thing. Then that not only like works in or helps in dark mode, but also light mode, and you don't have to worry about things like swapping or white borders or things like that.
Going back to the link issue with making sure things are underlined, somebody came in with a question on what's the significance of underlining links. They said they understand the need for a color change, but they're not sold on the need for an underlined link. So can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. So with the underlining, it's even more of a punch of making it very obvious that this is a link. And yes, for some people who have eye issues, they will be able to see a underlined, different color and underlined better than just a regular plain link, or just a color change.
So again, trying to be inclusive of everyone who might read your email, not making it easy for all types of visual imparities to see where they should link or where they should click when where you want them to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You said it better.
I'm not sure about that, but I got it. And now I understand. And that
I would like to add something to the link because it's for me it's good UX because the links were always supposed to be underlined from day number one.
right.
They were ugly blue, but they were always underlined. So when we're used to that, that's something we see. It's already information in our head that tells us, okay, this is a link.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you for chiming in there. Annette, I'm actually going to go over to you now. It's perfect timing. So how do you fix common mistakes in email? I'm going to switch over to your next slide, I think is this one.
Yeah, so here I have actually prepared an example of what Anne described, what we could do with a logo. Don't mind my typos. It was 5 a.m. in the morning when I created it. So this is a Bailey Nelson email header, which the first one is the black logo. The logo is naturally black on a white background. April Mail and Outlook 365 on dark mode will accept my swap. So this is a secondary image I prepared where I colored the logo in white so it looks good on a dark background. Unfortunately, Outlook 365 on dark mode on Windows 10 is ignoring that. So therefore, I don't know how good it is to see on a larger screen, it's probably better. I created a white outline around this logo, which we don't see on the white background because it's white. iPhone dark mode will swap the image because media queries are supported, which is great, but anything on Gmail will not. So here we will see the white outline again. Now, this is ideal. The logo will always be visible, even though it's black. So I was able to prepare the image this way. But where I run into issues is when the brand guidelines don't allow for this treatment. So usually the developer is not supposed to touch the image, or she goes straight to hell if the designer finds out and it hasn't been communicated. So I would really suggest to check with the brand style guides or brand guidelines if this is okay to do, because I have clients, they refuse this kind of treatment because it wasn't considered. So yeah, it's something that has to be definitely communicated.
Mm-hmm. I think you had some other examples in here.
There is another example, and so there might be some that are not agreeing with me here, but there is a hack to force a background.
I love the hack in it, so trust me.
Good. So this is an email. So this is an email where I hacked the background. In the sample, you don't see the white, but it's actually creating a white background, and it works across most of the dark mode. The only email client that does not support it is again Outlook Office 365, Windows 10. And the reason why we had turned this email into a white background email is because of the image. It was an old image in the hero, you can see that. Ideally, if that was transparent PNG, I wouldn't have to do it, but it doesn't look good. In the stats, we know that Windows 10 could be ignored because it didn't take much of the subscriber list. So more important was iOS and Gmail. And so here, this hack will work. So it's very unusual, and I didn't invent this. I found this somewhere on Twitter. I shared it, and I got a lot of backlash that I should not be breaking the dark mode and I should stick with the rules. But dark mode, I don't know any rules there are, and any dark mode looks different. So if I find a hack that works for my client, I will use it.
Rules are made to be broken, aren't they, Annette?
Right.
Come on.
Hashtag not sorry. So yeah, so for some reason, if you use a background color and together with the background image linear gradient, and you use the same color, it will force your background into any color you want to. Now, if you go to the next slide, there is something to be cautious about it. So yes, I would absolutely not recommend forcing to the background to break the dark mode, because it's there for a reason. So ideal is this solution for keeping brand colors. For example, the orange button you saw earlier in one of my examples, that is what I'm using for. I'm forcing the background color to stay on brand, on buttons, or on logo or footer backgrounds when the icons are not ideal, the icon color. But you need to keep in mind that it doesn't stop the font color to change. So if you're using a white or a black font color and you're forcing a white background and you have a black color in a white mode, then your font color will be white on white. So none of your content will be readable. There is no way to consistently force a font color or, for example, a stroke color. There's no way. So we can only use this in some instances. So if I would use it for a background button, then I would definitely use an off-white or something, so that the button has the opportunity to show a gray font on a orange.
I think this relates to what you're just talking about, Annette. The question came in that said, is there a consistent way to be able to serve up swappable images for dark mode? So like for those buttons that may not show up on a dark background very well, could you swap it with a different image?
My buttons are all coded.
Oh, okay.
So I don't use images for CTA buttons, because that is because some email clients don't have turned on images automatically. So the CTA is one of my most important elements in the email. So I would code it so it's instantly loaded.
What about for like a hero image then? Is there a way to serve up swappable images that if it's in dark mode versus light mode?
Well, yes and no, it is possible, definitely, because that is exactly what we're doing with the logo, right?
Right.
So if you want your hero image to appear nicer on a background, on a dark background, because you think it's important, then you can add a secondary image for sure. But this will not happen where media queries are not supported.
Okay.
Yeah, I use this technique a lot between mobile, desktop and mobile. For example, I have a hero that is designed for desktop and another hero designed for mobile images. So I do use this technique a lot, but if there's text rendered inside of an image, it will scale down on mobile when it's not supported. Sorry, Anne, I interrupted.
Oh, I was just going to say that the swap for, at least for dark mode, does not work in Gmail. So just be aware of that. I mean, for regular though, it totally works fine.
There's other clients too that it won't work in, but they're like one-off.
Mm-hmm. So Ed, just bringing that question back over to you, the main question back over to you, how do you fix common mistakes like white backgrounds?
I just try to employ transparent images. I know I'm reiterating myself, but here at EOA, I've seen some problems where there was some confusion because the image was transparent and it disappeared in dark mode. You know, it's because it's got a black logo.
Right.
And I try to reiterate just the use of transparent backgrounds. I've definitely changed colors of backgrounds before, but I tend to just try to keep it simple.
Okay. Question 6, we're going to start off with you, Ed. How are you making clients and brands aware of dark mode? And are you finding, and do you find you're having to update brand guidelines to add in dark mode?
So I've done like so much dark mode stuff. Like I've been like deep in dark mode for years now. So what I try to do is, I'm very fortunate here. I can do blogs. I've been writing blogs to try to give awareness, like accessibility, and also like hacks and some information about it. What was the other question?
The other part of the question is, are you having to find you have to update brand guidelines to add in dark mode?
No, so far I've been good with EOA's brand guidelines.
Okay, cool.
I think that actually could be a discussion, honestly. But
Oh, so are you looking at me as the head of the marketing department to try and start that conversation?
no, fingers crossed.
I'll take a note. I'll take a note. I'll add it to our roadmap. And I'm going to move over to you now.
Yeah. Most of my clients are already aware of dark mode, and I have even had like prospective clients ask me if I account for it. So it's definitely out there. And at least in my experience, people are asking for it. Mm-hmm. There's usually no brand guidelines, so I just kind of do what I think looks best. So, and what I do is darken all the colors by 75%, and yeah, and just do what I can using the dark mode media query. And yeah, so most of my clients are just like, oh, cool, you made it dark mode-y. Rockin', let's go with it.
That's awesome. Annette, what about you?
Yeah, I see Anne gets all the good clients here. I have to do a little bit more legwork, which I don't mind. I love working with designers and, see what kind of tools they're using. So if I move closer into the team, and that's what I usually like to do when I have a client, to be part of their team and work hand in hand. So I can learn a bit more about the latest tool they're using, and then I can, educate a bit more what the struggles on my end are. And I would suggest to include dark mode mockups into their workflow. And also, if they're not considered at all, there's no problem with me coding something ahead and giving some samples up front, because if someone hasn't been considered a dark mode, then it's probably really hard to imagine what's possible and what not. So I can easily, I have some frameworks that quickly can share and show the differences between the email clients to make people more aware of it.
Okay.
It's a good question though, because big companies like Samsung, like to get them to change would be like pulling teeth. Like, so
yeah.
Or get them to recognize it. If they see it, it's like different than, well, I think they use images in their emails, but still, it's like it's hard to get them to change.
All right, so we're wrapping up here on the questions that we discussed in preparation for this, but I know there are a lot of questions coming in, so we'll go through this last question and then open it up to some more questions, which I have a list of right here in front of me. So the last one for me is, what would be the best piece of advice you have for designing in dark mode? Annette, you're going to be the first one to take on this answer.
Well, the best piece of advice, again, stop working in silos, mm-hmm. Share experience, work together, stay up to date. And I'm not saying that designers should learn how to code or vice versa, but it's really good to work together and be aware of the limitations and the problems we have and we're facing. And taking out a little bit of the ego, no developer wants to break a design of a designer. That's not what we're here for. So I understand there's guidelines, and I understand there's technology limitation, and so we will have to find a way to bring this together. I don't see why brand guidelines have to be written in stone. Many of them are actually outdated. That's what I see. So if we start adjusting them and adding more the limitations or the possibilities of the technologies we're facing today. And I'm not saying that to redesign the whole brand guideline. I know that in most cases, there is no dedicated person to watch over the brand guidelines. So if we have a redesign of a brand, that's great. This is a really good opportunity to adjust guidelines to the current state. But if we're not, then it's enough to add a slide on. It's like, okay, here is a accessibility slide for our guidelines. This is what we're going to do. Or here is like, you know, what about web fonts? Yes, we have those fonts we're working with, but we all know they don't work everywhere. So what are the fallbacks? These kind of information should be written down in the brand guide. So if we have team members that are so strict with the brand guidelines, then I think they should also be strict with the updates of it. So that's what I wish for, and that's what I would suggest before we start, you know, banging our heads.
Ed, what about you? Where are you standing on this?
I know there's some difference of opinion, but I mean, I love that, by the way, but I would rather design for it. And just to make, you know, just to try to do things to make it aesthetically pleasing in dark mode.
True.
Just right out of the gate, just design an email in dark mode.
Yeah. I think I've yet to see an email that looks good in dark mode, honestly. So.
All right, Anne, over to you.
Yeah, gotta echo that. You know, you gotta plan for dark mode. So, and I would say try to look at doing, you know, adding in dark mode styles as like progressive enhancement as opposed to a chore. So you can make a percentage of your subscribers have a better experience if you account for dark mode. So, and I mean, you influence people through email. So if you make it enjoyable to interact with, I mean, for everybody, that's, you know, that's what I want to do. So I would say, yeah, do what you can with the email clients that allow you to do, put in dark mode styles.
All right, so I'm moving over to some questions. Let me open up the list. I think this one is the last one that I have on my list, but I know there are still some flooding in. So, but I found this one interesting. How do you solve the issue with a scan code or a barcode or a QR code that won't necessarily work on dark mode for scanning? Does anybody? And does anybody know, have you guys, anybody here on the panel tried that?
Yes.
Oh.
It can force a white background with that, because
Okay.
usually a QR code or whatever, those are made of black lines and such. So in that circumstance, you actually do have to force, which is not great, but you know, you do what you have to do.
Right.
That's a perfect example for the code tag that I just showed. But again,
Absolutely.
it will not work on Outlook 365. So might as well include a solid background color inside of the image itself. So to make sure it stays on white.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Here's another one. If the email's branding is already dark, will dark mode invert it to white?
I can't take this one.
I've seen it. Windows 10 on dark mode. I've seen it invert black to white.
Yeah.
Really?
The Jira I had, super interesting.
So it'll take a dark email and convert it or put it in white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It should recognize that it's dark.
Oh,
black.
so it will recognize that it's dark, so it won't convert it to light.
No, it like completely inverted it. It was really bizarre. It was bizarre. It was like I've never seen it before, but they had a black background in there. It was a Jira ticket I was on, and it's like, yeah, the client's inverting the black to white. It was weird.
Huh.
Yeah, I've seen that on Outlook 365. It will do a full invert. So if you have a black background, it will invert it to not exactly pure white, but close to it. So yeah, it's Outlook that does that. There aren't really I haven't seen that most anywhere except for that.
I actually recently worked on exactly an email like that. The background wasn't completely black; it was darker blue, and the way it converts is quite horrible. It's worse than anything because it doesn't do anything consistent between the email clients. You have to force a lot. I actually had to use my hack. But we're running into another issue here that Yahoo, for example, or there's some other web clients, for example, AOL, they will ignore this dark background and turn your email in complete white with white font. And there's another hack I found recently. I can share it later on Twitter, but to find that one was a nightmare. So a dark email that is a whole other game. I think that would change that would take another webinar to go through that. It was very difficult.
And can you elaborate on the halo effect you mentioned when using pure white and pure black?
Oh my. Unfortunately, I cannot. I was looking into accessibility and contrast ratios, and I can't remember where I found it, but there was an article that talked about those pure, white and black causing a halo. I wonder if it's maybe kind of like when you see those halos around like traffic lights.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's like that. I do not know.
Right.
I would suggest that if you want to learn more about that effect, do a Google search, or I can do it for you and you can email me and I can tell you more.
Okay, great. So let me see. Are we able to find out, and I think I even know the answer to this, but I'm going to throw it to you guys. Are we able to find out if users are on dark mode via Google Analytics or any other form of data?
Not to my knowledge. It is very hard to find out statistics regarding dark mode. So that's kind of why I did the math with the email client marketshare.com. So at least that gives you a little bit of an idea. But yeah, it's very difficult to find out how many people are using it.
Yeah. Annette, I'm going to throw this one over to you. How would you recommend treating button links that have black text and no underline? The button turns blue for this person in dark mode.
Say this again. I don't usually have underlines in a button.
So they don't have an underline. So the question is, how would you recommend treating button links that have black text and no underline?
Oh, and then
the button text turns blue for them in dark mode.
Oh, I know what that is. That's because the font color only has been defined in the class and not in line. Gmail does that. So the button color in the link in the styles has to be defined in line just before the font. Yes, otherwise web clients will turn links into the blue, and that the same thing happens with an address line or a phone number, for example. We just had that conversation on Slack the other day. So you do have to wrap, even though your address line, for example, is not a link, if you wrap it in a link and you define the font color, you can avoid the blue. Okay. You better put a link in it though, because if you do a hashtag in there, Outlook won't like that. So in this case, I might as well just link to the address on Google so to be helpful. So that's what I would do.
Okay. Here's one for everybody. Do you see a scenario in the future when we will design for dark mode first, as we've come to do with mobile?
I would have to ask my magic glass ball.
What's that?
I have to ask my glass ball.
Yeah, I could see that maybe becoming you account for it first as opposed to doing light mode first. I guess we'll just have to see.
Right. Anybody else want to chime in? Say yes, definitely. Go dark mode. I think Ed might be on that go dark mode.
I
can't-
actually read some news the other day that next Android version is going to let you pick and choose the time of date when you're using dark mode and whatnot. I have to confirm that. Some bird told me.
Well,
So,
iOS does that currently, right?
I'm a Pixel user, so actually I don't know.
I think it does, because mine goes dark at like
Yeah,
when it's like dusk.
right.
It changes. Yeah.
My Pixel lately does go black and white completely when I charge at night.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought I'd be smart about it and make a screenshot and post it on Twitter, and it looked good. But the next morning when I looked, it was colorful. It's like, oh my God, it was just my screen. It wasn't actually. It's like, oh, I guess I have to delete this tweet to not look stupid. So yeah, there's some settings on phones we're simply not in control of. So, but yeah, it's good to consider them or think about it. Like personally, I would totally love sepia, but
Right. Let's just go all the way back to sepia. It's all good.
yeah.
Ed, I'm going to throw this one next to you. I think I know your answer. What
do it.
testing tools do you use to preview your emails while debugging?
Say again, sorry.
What testing tools do you use to preview your emails while debugging?
Oh, we know the answer to this one.
Campaign pre-check, I think, right?
Yeah, yep. Email and acid, campaign pre-check, email previews.
Awesome. Another question, and this says it's an honest question, okay? Do you guys really adore dark mode and swear by using it?
That's a little strong.
A little extreme.
I would say that I like dark mode. I use it. I prefer it, but I'm not sure that I'm totally in love with it and think that it should be the standard. So
No.
everybody's got a preference.
I have a question back. Which one is your favorite child? We're testing for 50 clients. It's like, there's not a single one I go 100% for.
Yeah. What about colors? Okay, I'm gonna say that we need to start wrapping up here. So I'll do this as the last question, and then if your question didn't get answered, please reach out to Email on Acid on Twitter. Ed Ball is on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are at the beginning, and we can go around the room and give those out again here at the end. But please phrase your questions on Twitter. We can take these questions and put them on our blog too, and get answers to all of them for you guys. So appreciate you being willing to ask questions. I think that this panel has been fantastic at answering the majority of them. But what about colors for Outlook that don't align with standards / guidelines?
Sounds kind of ambiguous.
So what would you do if you go in and you have the email, you preview it in dark mode, and the blue is not the brand blue? How do you account for that?
Use the hack.
Yeah, I used.
Yeah.
I just shared the hack with you.
There you go.
Outlook can't be hacked though, right? So you're kind of.
Oh, yes, it can, just not the one on Windows 10. That's the only one, but the hack works everywhere else.
Awesome. Okay. I did want to fill everybody in on, well, first of all, I want to thank Anne, Annette, and Ed for their time. I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. I love connecting with all of you virtually, even since we can't really do it in person anymore. So thank you for your insights, your tricks, your tips, everything around dark mode. And one other plug from the Email on Acid team, we are doing a Action Rocket and Email Asset are joining together forces on Twitter next Wednesday, October 28th at 11 a.m. And we're going to be talking more about dark mode with the team over there. So please join us. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We will be answering questions as they come in from the group on blogs, Twitter, all of that. Feel free to reach out. Let's go around the room one more time and talk about our Twitter handles so folks can connect with us there. I'm Monica FR Hoyer on Twitter. Ed, why don't you roll it over to you first?
I'm eBall Forever on Twitter and Instagram.
eBall Forever.
Yep, eBall Forever.
Got it. And what about you?
Mine is Pompeii79, and I also tweet. It emails y'all.
Great. And Annette?
It's _Annette or
Awesome.
Email Boutique.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys again. It was great to connect with you. I hope everybody on the phone has a fantastic Thursday, and we are ending exactly at 12:30. So thank you guys. Have a great day.